Just as a reminder to everyone who's joining, I'm sure it showed up on your screens ahead of time, but all of these calls are recorded. You can find the recordings on YouTube. I'll actually make sure a link gets posted in the meeting minutes for this meeting so that you can go back and check out the recording of this meeting as well as any of the other ones, the previous ones. Our friends at NEAT provide the video conferencing and recording for us. We thank them as always. So it is 7:01. I will call the meeting to order officially, and we will jump into it. Just to familiarize, we've got some new people from the public joining us. We've got one of our new board members, Jessica, joining us. This is what you're seeing tonight is a typical agenda. We start off, there's some boilerplate items that we always start off when the first one is the review and approval of the previous month's meeting minutes. In this case, there's an error on the published agenda. We're actually approving 2 months worth of meeting minutes because we had a canceled meeting last month because due to scheduling issues. That's always followed by public forum. We always let members of the public speak first in case they wanted to get something out and didn't want to sit through the rest of the agenda. There are a couple items in the middle that have been on the agenda for a handful of months, and then we follow up with any other additional business that didn't get onto the formal agenda, followed by adjournment. See one more, somebody's dialing in on phone. Not sure if that's one of our board members or if that's a public member, but in the interim, I'm going to, I'll get started.
It's Brad.
Hey.
Racing home right now. I'll call back in on Zoom when I get home, but I just wanted to call in while I'm.
Okay, this is the Bristol Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting, so there's no need to race, Brad. We'd rather have you get home safely. All right, we'll see you. Yes, and responsibly. We'll see you in a second. So first agenda item is the approval of the meeting minutes from, let's see, both August 31st as well as, I believe it's September 28th or 29th. Hold on, let me just check. Yes, September 28th as well as October 31st. Jessica, I typically ask for first of all, obviously a motion to approve the meeting minutes, and certainly if anybody has gone through the meeting minutes of the last 2 months and has seen something that's been an omission or not as remembered, please let me know, and you don't have to make the motion. We can make an adjustment. But making a motion to would anybody like to make a motion to approve those 2 sets of meeting minutes?
I will. I'll make a motion.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Second?
I'll second.
Brad from the car. Excellent. Okay, so the meeting minutes have been approved. So we will move forward with public forum. Again, this is typically the chance that a chance we give to the members of the public who are not on the board to broach any subject whatsoever. It could be something that's not on the agenda. It could be something that is, but they need to get it out right now or anything like that. So again, thanks members of the public that are joining us. Does anybody want to bring anything in front of the group at this time? Okay, that looks like nobody's bringing anything forward. So we will move on into the kind of the heart of our tonight's agenda. Agenda item number 3, introduction of our newest board members. So on the phone, you heard Brad Cameron, and you see Jessica Tietz there. Jessica, it would be great if you could give us just a short little blurb on yourself, why you wanted to join the group. We're extremely happy that the select board brought both you and Brad on, and we'd love to hear more about where you're coming from.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I tried to work with a group of concerned citizens who wanted the speed limit lowered and were just concerned about overall pedestrian and bike safety. when was that? A while ago. And so I worked with that group, and we brought our presentation to the select board. And in addition to asking them to lower the speed limit, we also asked them to create this committee with the idea then that there would be regular voices. And so it wouldn't be so hard in the future for people to bring these issues up and get on the agenda. So that was the idea, and so I'm excited to rejoin the group. And I have lots of ideas as far as working with our new town grants writer, as well as hopefully getting on the agenda a lot more with the select board. A lot of times, what I've noticed is if there's sort of one angry citizen in the crowd who speaks out against something like lowering the speed limit, even though you have hundreds of people saying they want it, the select board seems to then say, well, we'll revisit the decision and we'll move it back. So I think we have to make sure that we sort of keep the pressure up and keep these things on the agenda. So I'm excited to work with everyone and get to know everyone.
Epic. Thank you for that. Brad, if you're available to, otherwise we can do this later. If you want to give the group just a little bit of background on yourself as well, please.
Hi. Yeah. So, I moved to Bristol 8 years ago, just a little over now, and have been working on just getting more involved in the community. And when Chris said that they were looking for some more members to join this committee, I leapt at the chance as a cyclist and as someone who lives in the village and cares deeply about just the safety of all persons, especially those who are commuting on bicycles and by foot. Just wanted to get to learn more and really coming with no agenda other than just to learn and hopefully make some impactful decisions which will help make Bristol a better, safer place to live.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I don't know if anybody has any questions for Brad or Jessica before we move on to the next agenda item. Again, we're eternally thankful that you've decided to and have been able to join the board with us, and we look forward to digging in on the things that you just both mentioned. Does anybody have any questions for our two newest members?
No, just thank you for joining.
Okay, so let's move on to item number 4, walk bike survey. This is something that I've been working with some people from Local Motion on, coming out of our first presentation to the select board months ago. One of the things that started kind of going around in our heads was, okay, we want to bring as much objective information to bear behind any of the initiatives that we bring in front of the select board moving forward, short of posting somebody on any of the streets that we're looking to do any kind of improvements or adjustments to, and having them be there for a statistically significant amount of time. We started to look at ways that we could get information, pull information out of people who are using the town for biking, for walking, for other non-motorized traffic, just to get a kind of a gauge on usage trends, usage types, amounts, things like that, in addition to demographic information and things of that nature. They have provided me with an initial draft of that survey. I've gone through it. Because of low attendance at previous meetings, we haven't actually moved it forward yet. But what I will do at the end of this meeting is I will forward the link to the draft survey to all of you. My personal feeling is that I believe that right now the questions capture a lot more demographic information than we as a group are going to be able to use. I think certainly a group like Local Motion sees any opportunity to gather demographic information as a great thing. But my gut says that we need to add additional more usage-based questions into the survey. Dates, times, amounts per week, how each streets and things like that, because that's the thing that we were looking to help bolster any efforts or any initiatives that we were looking to put in front of the select board with, is that street X over the course of a 7-day week sees this many people who are regular users. And again, everything that we've been using up to this point to back a lot of what we were doing was either some degree of community input we'll take Pine Street and the massive amount of people that have reached out to us both in meetings as well as behind the scenes via email, and just even grabbing people and saying, hey, how's the traffic calming thing going on Pine Street? Additionally, it's been anecdotal, it's been observational, and I think the survey gives us a chance to formalize the information that we use to inform where we need to go next, or how we need to support any of the issues that the select board has already actually chartered us to move forward with. So I will forward a link to that survey, and we can via email share thoughts on it, and then discuss at the next meeting, and then we'll vote next meeting to move forward on it. One of the reasons why we're taking, I think, such a sort of an orthodox stance on making sure that the group is here, we have a quorum to vote on these types of things, is to make sure everything we're doing is above board. So we've taken a very conservative approach. In the first 2 years, it has slowed the pace of progress, but I think the upside of that is that we haven't really set a foot wrong as far as procedural issues or anything like that. So that's why I'm erring on the side of caution as far as how we bring even the smallest things like these surveys forward. Are there any questions on that? I know I'm talking in the abstract since none of you have actually seen the survey. I might have sent it, Tanya, you might have seen it. I can't recall if I had sent it around earlier. But again, apologies for talking in the abstract, but does anybody have any questions about the survey before they see it?
Was this is this I vaguely remember months ago that we had someone from Middlebury College was doing some kind of a study. I can't remember if it was students, or is this that same survey, or is this a different survey?
Yeah, Dustin, you're actually the second person today who has asked if this is the same survey. That was the sidewalk survey that we did together with a class from Middlebury College who had volunteered their time and their massive amount of knowledge and imagination to surveying all of the village police district's sidewalks. That's going to be an agenda item for the next meeting in December. We have finally gotten, after months and months of prodding, I shouldn't say that. After months and months of them processing the data and getting it all into a kind of a digestible form, they've got stuff that we can share and dive into. And Valerie at the town hall she reached out to me today with a very clear kind of an action step for us and the data that group from Middlebury College had gathered. So that'll be an agenda item for an actual agenda item for next month. And in advance of that, I will share the information that the Middlebury College group has gathered for the town. Jessica and Brad, you're unless you heard about this in a roundabout way, basically what happened was there was a class at Middlebury who had gone around through some of the outreach groups and some of the bicycle and pedestrian committees in the Tri-Town area and asked if there was kind of a ready project that anybody was looking for any kind of an assistance on. And Valerie said, every year we have a budget, or we seek to create a budget for repairs and improvements to sidewalks. We do that against a backdrop of not having empirical or objective survey data or condition reports or anything like that on those self-same stretches of sidewalk. So this group came up with an app that takes the sidewalk in 5-foot sections and measures grade, condition, surface, every single kind of thing, so that Valerie can then go and look at that and say, oh, well, this is the street we actually need to do the next repairs on. It's a pretty fascinating thing from a data standpoint. It's extremely deep and detailed. And so Valerie's got a project for us. Long story short, Valerie's got a project for us that has to do with the data that group collected. There's maps and there's interactive maps and all kinds of things that came with it. It's pretty cool. So if there's
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So we'll move on to agenda item number 5, and that's the Pine Street Initiative. As you all know, the Pine Street Initiative was the first project that the group itself was chartered with on the back of the work that Jessica and the ad hoc committee had originally done. This was the first thing that the select board had said, okay, here we've budgeted money for this, what was then called the traffic calming project. It was going to have advisory lanes and things like that. And we were tasked with bringing forward a plan for how that project would be spec'd out for Pine Street. In the middle of that project, the select board pivoted and said, put that on ice for a minute, pursue a different direction for us, please. We pursued that, presented it in front of the select board. The select board tabled it for the interim. And what I would like to do as a group is, based on what I had heard from the select board, I believe that where their heads were at with the initial project they chartered us with, which was as far as traffic calming was concerned, was the advisory lanes one. I believe that their heads were in the right place with that. That I think that all the objections that the select board had raised and the concerns they had raised around the second direction they had sent us in, the first direction, the initial direction they sent us in with the advisory lanes, is actually deals with all of those problems. It's not going to, without getting too deep into it, basically the difference between advisory lanes and adding new stop signs at intersections, all the objections that were heard about the stop sign project, I believe the advisory lane thing could be successful in dealing with. And so I wanted to put it to the group, and Jessica and Brad, I will, if you haven't seen these already, Jessica, obviously, you're familiar with the advisory lane thing, and Brad, you should know from conversations that we've had and things like that, what the plan was for Pine Street, because you live on it. If I'm asking the board, is it worth putting to a vote tonight, bringing the original plan back in front of them, or do you want some time to relook at the plan that we had put on, it's on the share drive, relook at the plan that we had put together last year for it and make any changes. And then that'll push it out a month, which isn't a big deal if you all want time to go back and revisit that information. But let's have a discussion right now whether we think it's worth having a vote on bringing back the original plan, or sitting on it a month so everybody can weigh in on it and we can make any adjustments that anybody feels necessary. Does anybody have anything to say? Any thoughts on that?
I think it would be a great idea, just because, the select board has tried to look at building a sidewalk on Pine Street, but because the houses are so close on either side of the street, they would almost be like at people's front steps. So it's going to be impossible for them to build a sidewalk. But we see such heavy use, people are walking their dogs, they're biking, they're walking on it all the time. And so I think that an advisory lane would be a great solution. It would create a sort of safe buffer zone, but still allow cars to use it as they need to if pedestrians aren't in there. So I think it would be a really great solution. And again, it's not like we just need to wait and they can build a sidewalk in that particular spot. A sidewalk really isn't an option.
Yeah. Dustin, Kevin, Tanya, Brad.
Yeah, I'm wondering about. I'm just trying to recall in our original idea. I think did we have lanes on both sides of the road? I'm wondering if it may be wiser to just do on one side of Pine, because a lot of the feedback I've heard talking with people, and I can't remember anyone gave us this from the select board or not, but I've had a lot of conversations with like Joel Bouvier, who's on the select board, and just because it's so narrow to put those lines on both sides of it, it leaves so little in the middle. I'm wondering about maybe just on one side, and I don't know what the recommended width is, but I think just having anything there, even if it's only like single track width for Walker, just to have it so that it cues drivers that there's pedestrian traffic here. It narrows it just a little bit more to slow and calm the traffic a bit, I think that would it would be helpful, but maybe doing lanes on both sides, I feel would be a little too much. It just would be enough in the middle.
We can,
And I haven't heard anything about them. I don't think they can widen the road at all. I mean, I think if they could, they would. Right now, having just done that waterline project would be the ideal time to do that. And I don't believe that that's happening. So like the road, as far as what it is for width, is what it is.
and as you all recall in our due diligence when we were putting together the initial plan, Pine Street is actually not wide enough to be considered a legal 2-lane road. So any striping we put on it's almost academic when the road itself is not actually what the state has. It does not fit the minimum width definition of a 2-lane road with or without lanes. So there's part of me that wants to say it's not a 2-lane road as it is. But to your point, I think you bring up a good point, Dustin, and what we can do, and maybe we do table the actual vote on this until December, because that'll give us a chance to reach back out to groups like Local Motion, so that they can give us alternatives that are, say, single lane or single sided alternatives. That's something that our plan had initially not considered. It was a both sides of the street plan. So we can reach back out to the groups that we've been in touch with for what their best practices are around that.
Okay.
Anyone else have any other comments? I think, Jessica, I know I'm with you. I want to gather some momentum here, but I think Dustin brings up a good point as far as like getting this project into a place that has a better chance of making it through any of the select board's challenges. And one of the things that we can possibly do is we can offer up two plans, like a best case scenario plan and a scenario that might be a little bit more palatable. But if we do the latter as well, I want to make sure that it's backed with something from a third party that says, okay, when you're doing a one side of the street thing, these are the things to consider, because now you might have, say, bicycles and pedestrians going in opposite directions, sharing the same advisory lane or something like that. And this is how you deal with them. Because again, all of the work that we had done was for lanes on both sides of the street. And we didn't, and that's how we were kind of dealing with the flow of pedestrian and bicycle traffic issue. Was it's going to be moving in the directions that it would move legally with or without those lanes. So
is there such a thing as just a pedestrian lane that's not, because I do see cyclists going in both directions. I mean, I see Pine Street as like, I mean, it's a slow enough speed limit where I think most cyclists, unless it's a small child on a kid's bike, should be just following the rules of the road.
Exactly, that's what it is. It defers to the rules of the road. Yeah.
So, but a lane for pedestrians, I think.
Well, yeah, we could look.
Helpful.
We could ask some of the groups what they've seen. Is there such a thing as a pedestrian only lane? Because I think there's a case that can be made, and certainly everybody that has experience walking Pine Street as well as some of the other streets in the village that and around town that don't have sidewalks, is you certainly feel most exposed when you're, especially on Pine Street, when you're walking that street and there's a car coming the other towards you, and it has no interest in yielding at all. So certainly we're hoping to protect the most vulnerable right now. Certainly feel like pedestrians on Pine Street, but any other comments on Pine Street for now? We will I'll just note in the interim, I'll reach back out to a couple of the groups that we've been working with for information coming into our December meeting, and we'll start acting accordingly behind the scenes to just get some type of additional plan, potentially a single one side of the street plan in place as well, to augment the plan that we had already put in, or I shouldn't say the plan that we already created for them, but that we never actually, Jessica and Brad, we never actually put the advisory lane proposal in front of the select board formally. That was moved out of the way in favor of the stop sign one. Okay, everybody all right with that? All right, then moving on, the next item is number 6, quarterly initiatives. Brad and Jessica, our intention at the beginning of this year was to put, and Jessica, this goes to one of your your points earlier, was to, on a quarterly basis, put a new initiative in front of the select board. So over the course of the year, we would put 4 formal things in front of them. That was just to try to give us kind of an arbitrary cadence to aim for, but due to quorum issues, we've been kind of hamstrung to do that. So this is just my reminder to everyone that at the next meeting, we should have, basically, Brad and Jessica, it was just this general open call for ideas to put in front of the board, whether it's okay, we want to do an advisory lane on Mountain Street, or we want to do a crosswalk down near, I don't know, down up at the bridge, beyond Rocky Dale, so that you can cross easier, anything like that. It's that kind of thing that we can all throw out ideas, vote on those ideas, come up with a plan to put plans together for the select board and get them in front. Jessica, if you think, like, as we roll, and Brad too, and everybody, as we roll into 2024, we want to actually hold ourselves to an even more aggressive cadence, whether it's once every a plan every 2 months in front of them or whatever. By all means, propose it, and hopefully, if we can maintain quorum, we can gain and maintain momentum there with that type of thing. Jessica, does that feel like what my description of what a quarterly initiative is? Does that feel like it's at least a little bit akin to what you were talking about?
I think so, yes. And one thing that I've noticed sitting in on a lot of the select board meetings over the last few years, and Jim can probably speak to this too, is that I've noticed that if there are grant applications that we can apply for, that almost always is approved. So if we can go ahead and apply for grants, when we bring those issues in front of the select board, we might be able to use that as a way to overcome any initial not hesitation, but I've noticed that the select board, they really like to consider things and think about them, and that's wonderful, except that then it can take a long time.
Yeah.
But if there's a grant application, they tend to say, let's try it, let's
Yeah.
see how it goes. And so that might be something that we'd want to do early next year, is try to meet with the town grant writer. And then if we can get some of those grant initiatives going, maybe we could use that to prioritize our asks from the select board.
Excellent. We have a couple that we've been stewing on for a while: augmented crosswalks, continue the sidewalk on Airport Road. There's a handful that are kind of waiting in the wings that are definitely grant appropriate. So I think, like, if 2024, it'd be great if 2024 was the year of the grants, and that, to your point, the presence of a grant being in the mix actually helped move it through the select board. That would be awesome. I think that's a great strategy. Okay, if there's nothing more on that, then we'll move on to other business. This is kind of an open forum for the board itself to broach anything that didn't make it onto the formal agenda. As a reminder, I'll try to send out in as far enough in advance that seems appropriate, a call for agenda items. And just Brad and Jessica, and just as a reminder to everybody else, I'm going to, moving forward, try to get the agenda to the town clerk with at least a day's notice in advance of them having to post it, just again, so that we're staying on the inside of all the rules and things like that. I'll follow up with a post on Front Porch Forum at some point before the meeting. But what I'll try to do is I'll send out a call for agenda items the week before, if anybody has them, and we'll have a cutoff of, like, the Monday before, just afternoon Monday before, evening Monday before, and that'll give us enough time to get it in, and for Valerie to post, because then we'll have the actual agenda to her, in her mailbox on by Tuesday morning, and she can just throw that up immediately. So other business, Jessica, I think we covered 1.5-ish things that at least that you had brought up in your note to me. Was there was another item potentially that you wanted to talk about, or did we actually end up covering 2.5 items?
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
Okay, cool.
Oh, I remember what the last one was. It was just that the select board is going to start the budgeting process.
Yes.
And so whatever they agree on in the next month or two will be the budget moving forward. So one thing that I've noticed is that if the things that we ask for aren't timed correctly with the budget, they say, oh, we'll deal with that
Yep.
next year because it's not in the budget. But if we actually get things in the budget, then they do come up regularly as part of, regular business. So if there's an advisory lane and we can get an estimate for what that would cost, it doesn't have to be super exact, but just
Yep.
to be able to put that money in the budget, then we'll know that we have that money in the budget, and it's most likely going to happen at that point. So that means that we would need to, I think, they're going to start at that December 4th meeting to start
Okay.
talking about the budget.
Great to know. And and that's a good reminder for me. I'll reach out to Ian and see if the money they budgeted for the Pine Street is still there. I know that Ian has mentioned multiple times that depending on how they allocated money, it stays there. Like it doesn't, depending on how they allocate certain funds, those funds don't necessarily turn into pixie dust at the end of the year if they don't get spent. So it's very possible that our lane money is still there. They had actually not only budgeted for that project, but had actually found a vendor for it too. So but I will reach out to Ian on that.
That would be great too, if we can, as we work in with the board as they're doing their budgeting, if we can get line items put in the budget for things like, striping bike lanes or things like that. If it becomes a regularly occurring item, we only have to do this once.
Yeah.
And then after that,
Yeah.
it'll just, what they do with the budget is they take last year's budget, they update it where they think it needs to be done, then they discuss it, and then it's passed and it
Yeah.
goes to the voters. So if we can, figure out what a budget would be for the projects that we want to do and get it in the budget, then we might only have to do this once, and we'll just have that money.
Got it. Well, we appreciate the insight and the time that both you and I know, Jim, you spend your fair share of time on select board calls. Definitely appreciate the time you've all spent dedicated to that cause. So, and any insights that you bring to this, we appreciate as well. So with that, this is there's an item in the actual meeting minutes that you will see that it actually ties in a little bit to what could potentially be a grant writing project, or a grant writing item is we're keeping an audit of bike racks around the town. And just as a reminder for everyone, especially our two newest members, that this isn't our initiatives and our capacity is not limited, obviously, just to the village police district, where our long-term goals are to make the Bristol area as a whole more healthy and vibrant for bicycle and pedestrian use. So when the thing that I'll say next is this can be inclusive of areas that are beyond just where it's easy to audit. We have been kind of undertaking an audit of where bike racks are in and around Bristol. We had a couple people who lived outside of the village, but who use a lot of the resources within the village, whether they are playgrounds or rec fields and things like that. They had asked, well, hey, we like to bring our bikes in and use them and leave them places, but there's no bike rack at point X or whatever. So we've created a spreadsheet where we're just, if you see a bike rack somewhere, go to the spreadsheet and check and see if it's already noted there. And it's just a super basic thing. It's where is it? How many bikes does it hold? Just the bare minimum of facts to look at. First of all, do we have bike racks where we expect to have bike racks? Like parks, the rec fields, the schools, things of that nature. Then as we spread out a little bit, are there other areas like the parks along the river down on 116 and Bristol at Bartlett Falls and things like that? We start to think like, okay, are there places where we should have bike racks like that, and they aren't there? So that's really what this is. It's designed to inform what our bike rack inventory should look like relative to what it does look like now. So think about a grant writing, a grant proposal might be something that gains us funds so that we can put some more bike racks in town. We have certainly added bike racks on a yearly basis, though the form they take tends to be a little bit ad hoc. Some of them are awesome, like the ones down next to the bank, between the bank and Snaps down there that are hardscaped into the sidewalk, and others like the ones that are across the street from Walgreens in the park are two bike racks of look like from two completely different vendors that are there, and they're doing their job, but they look like almost like a little bit of a less formal process led to them being there. So this is just one of the things that I think is a good, easy thing based on feedback that we've gotten from people who are using the village itself in a way that they're like, hey, there should be a bike rack here, or potentially even more bike racks somewhere. So that link is in the meeting minutes from the last few months. I will, after this meeting, I'm going to send out a note, Brad and Jessica, that'll show you where our cloud share is, so that you can have access to. Jessica, you'll see a lot of your work in there. We've got all the ad hoc committees work that was passed on to us, stuff that was dealing with initiatives that we were putting forward, meeting minutes, agendas, and things of that nature. But I'll also throw the link to that audit just in the email that I send afterwards following up. So that is basically it for this month. Does anybody have anything else before we make a motion to adjourn?
I just want
Okay.
to compliment you on the efficiency of this meeting.
I change into a different person on these calls. Brad knows me very well and knows that I tend to talk ad nauseum, but at least I try to maintain a rigidity, and the agenda allows me to do that. But thank you for the compliment. And I think I speak on behalf of the rest of the board oops. Sorry, I froze up for a second. Weird. I'm down in Florida, and it looked like it was my turn to freeze here. But I speak on behalf of the board, where again, very thankful to both Jessica and Brad for joining, and also just on behalf of me, thanks both to the board for fully showing up this month, and Jim and Luke, great seeing you. Thank you as always to our members of the public for showing up and being a part of this. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Brad, thank you. Jessica, thank you for those motions. Everyone, again, thank you for attending. So at 7:39, we adjourn this meeting, and look for some emails after the fact with some of the things we discussed tonight. Thanks, everyone.
And everyone.
Take
Bye,
it
everyone.
easy.
Okay.